Neolithic tribes who settled in this area noticed that the surface springs were salty. You may feel here as if you were in the mines of Moria, but fortunately we don't have orcs and goblins here, so you're safe. We just have the dwarves, but I'll tell you about the dwarves later on. The altar of resurrection on the other side. Chandeliers in the chapel are decorated with halide crystals, so this is the purest form of rock salt.
Uite la... Wow! Super.
The attractions in this place was an underground boat ride for VIP guests through the tunnel to the second part of the chamber. So you will see this place in a moment. We'll go down the stairs, so please mind your steps and follow me. Please come a little bit closer so that we can see. Ladies and gentlemen, the mining of rock salt in Wieliczka started in 13th century, but much earlier, 6,000 years ago, people of Neolithic tribes who settled in this area noticed that the surface springs were salty. And they started to collect the water and boil it over the fire. When water evaporated, white substance was left at the bottom of clay containers. It was the first evaporated salt, or in other words, the first production of salt in this place 6,000 years ago. And we know that thanks to archaeological excavations that were carried out in this place, the archaeologists found here the remains of Neolithic villages, as well as the remains of clay containers that were used for boiling and briquetting of salt. Later on, when the surface springs started to disappear, people needed to look for salty water deeper, and they started to dig wells, and that's how they encountered the deposit of rock salt we're visiting today. The salt deposit was found at a depth of 30 meters. Of course, salt was very important because it was used in different types of transactions. Sometimes as a method of payment. It was very precious because sometimes it was called white silver. Ladies and gentlemen, we entered the so-called sandstone chamber. What is the origin of the sand in the rock salt? The sand is the sea. As I mentioned, there was a huge Miocenic sea in this area, and with climate change, the sea evaporated and salt deposit was formed at the bottom. So miners encountered here not only rock salt, but also other types of stones, like clay stones or sandstones. This is also the last chamber on the first level. In a moment, we'll go down the stairs to reach the upper part of the second level. You also have a chance to see original steps carved by the miners in the rock salt, and they were used by them to carry the salt out from the bottom part of the chamber here to the first level. On your right hand side, another example of the manual cross. You've already seen this device, but this time it's just a reconstruction. And usually those machines worked over the blind shafts. There is a blind shaft over there, and the basic difference between a blind shaft and a shaft is that the blind shafts were much smaller and they just connected levels in the mine, while the shafts connected the mine with the surface. We'll go down the stairs, so please mind your steps, and on your right hand side you will see other examples of salt, stalactites and stalagmites. Salt, and they were used by them to carry the salt out from this part of the chamber up to the first level. They were steep, slippery, there wasn't any handrail, and you need to remember that it was much darker here because there was no electricity, and miners used just open fire to light the corridors in the caverns. The first lamps were very primitive because they were made of clay and they were powered by animal fats. As you can see, this chamber is very unique and irregular in terms of shape because miners at the beginning didn't have any plans of excavation, so they basically followed the purest veins of salt. If you watch The Lord of the Rings, sometimes you may feel here as if you were in the mines of Moria, but fortunately we don't have orcs and goblins here, so you're safe. We just have the dwarves, but I'll tell you about the dwarves later on. And in this part, you can also see another securing method used by the miners to secure the ceiling and the walls. It's called the anchoring technique with the rock bolts. You can actually touch a rock bolt here. Those rock bolts are several meters long and they are pasted into the rock mass with an epoxy glue. So this is the latest method. We learn about other methods as well. So please mind the steps and follow me this way. Ladies and gentlemen, we reached the bottom part of the chamber, and this is a good place to tell you about the second danger that miners encountered during the work, the danger of water. Because when miners started to extract salt, fresh water entered the mine immediately. And why is it so dangerous? Because fresh water dissolves the salt walls and the ceiling. So it was the cause of underground collapses and subsidence of the ground. Miners had to collect the water and pump it out of the mine. There was very simple things like wooden pipes like one here, wooden cannons like the one over there. They collected the water in wooden tanks, and later on with the help of such pumps, they pumped the water between the levels and then back to the surface. This water was then transferred to the salt works and evaporated there. So evaporated salt was also produced here. It just accounted for 5% of the whole salt production, because 95% was the mining of rock salt. Even nowadays we have underground fully saturated brine here. This water is pumped out of the mine, but it cannot be dumped to the streams because it's not ecologically friendly. So this water is transferred to the utilization plant and evaporated there. So you can still get evaporated salt from Wieliczka in the shops, but just evaporated salt from fully saturated brine. We stopped the mining of salt in 1996. Okay, we'll do this. Ladies and gentlemen, we entered the so-called dwarf's chamber. It's connected with the legends about dwarfs who helped miners during the work. So this figural composition depicts dwarfs at work. They perform different types of mining professions, like mining carpenter, mining crusher, the hauler, the foreman, the plumber. They were believed to help the miners, especially if they took over the shifts at night and worked for the miners. Sometimes the dwarves were mischievous, they played tricks on miners, and unfortunately you cannot see the Snow White here because it's a totally different story. Yes. Okay, we'll go this way. Enter the chamber, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we entered the first chapel on the tourist route. It's called the Holy Cross Chapel. On one side there is a wooden sculpture of Christ on the cross. On the other side there is a wooden sculpture of Our Lady of an infant. And here in front of the altar, two sculptures made of rock salt depicting two kneeling monks. But as you can see, they are heavily dissolved because those sculptures were taken from different parts of the mine from the times when there was no electricity and no air conditioning. So they were heavily affected by the humid air. But why miners created such places? Of course, work in a salt mine was never a punishment. No child labor, no slavery here, because miners also had some privileges. They could take, for example, a few handfuls of salt and later on sell it on the market, so it was like an additional salary for them. But if you take into account working conditions, they're quite unusual, because first of all, it was underground. It was dark here, the danger of water, the danger of fire, underground collapses and subsidence of the ground. A very hot and humid place. So we wouldn't call it a perfect workplace. And miners created underground places of worship because they usually start their shifts with either prayers or the holy service. And this is just an introduction to the place we're about to see in a moment. One of the biggest underground chapels in the world dedicated to Saint Kinga, patron saint of the salt miners. You remember Princess Kinga from the legend. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the heart of our salt mine. This chapel dedicated to Saint Kinga, the patron saint of the salt miners. Just to give you a few numbers how impressive it is, it's 55 meters long, 20 meters wide, and up to 12 meters high. All those decorated elements and sculptures downstairs were carved in the rock salt, and they were created by 3 minor sculptors and also a number of helpers. The process of decoration took almost 70 years because it was started in 1895 and completed in 1963 because miners usually worked after the regular shift, so in their free time. In a moment, we'll go down the stairs to reach the bottom part. I will tell you more about the sculptures in the chapel there, and we'll go around the chapel. I'll give you also some time to take pictures and have a little bit of individual sightseeing there as well. So we'll use the stairs. Please mind your steps because the stairs are also made of rock salt, so they might be slippery. So please be careful there. So we'll go this way. Follow me, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we reached the main part of the chapel. The depth here is 100 meters, and all those sculptures and bas reliefs that surround us present the scenes from Jesus' life according to New Testament. So above you've got a nativity scene with the baby Jesus made of orange salt. Actually, this orange salt is not from our mine because in our mine we just have like green or gray salts, and this orange salt was taken from a different mine but also in Poland. Two sculptures presenting the judgment of Herod and here the massacre of the innocents. Now, if you take a few steps forward, you've got the side altar of Our Lady on your right-hand side and the side altar of Resurrection on the other side. Chandeliers in the chapel are decorated with halide crystals, so this is the purest form of rock salt. If we move to this part, on your right-hand side, there are two scenes from Jesus' childhood life. The first one titled The Flight to Egypt, and the one over there, 12-year-old Jesus preaching in a temple. In the main part of the chapel, there is a high altar dedicated to Saint Kinga, with the figure of Saint Kinga in a center, also carved in rock salt. In the altar mansas, we also have the relics of Saint Kinga here and relics of our Pope John Paul II. On the other side, three scenes from Jesus' adult life. So the first one titled The Miracle in the Cana of Galilee. The most famous one inspired by Leonardo da Vinci fresco The Last Supper. And the third sculpture titled Doubting Thomas. Now I'll give you maybe 2 minutes to take some pictures, to have a little bit of individual sightseeing. And I will be waiting for you over there by the sculpture of John Paul II before we continue. So I'll just raise my hand and we're leaving, okay?
Okay.
So we can take some pictures
Thank
now.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this place is still in functioning, so every Sunday there's a service available for everyone at 7:30. It's also possible to get married here. Sometimes the chamber changes into the concert hall, and the concerts of classical music are held here as well. On your right hand side, the sculpture of our Pope John Paul II. This sculpture was placed here in 1999 as a gratitude for canonization of Saint Kinga. John Paul II visited our mine 3 times, but never as a pope. He was Karol Wojtyła at that time, so twice as a student and once as an archbishop of Krakow. On your left-hand side, 3 commemorative plaques dedicated to the 3 main creators of this place, the authors of all those sculptures that surround us, and 2 of them were brothers, so Tomasz and Józef Markowski, and later on Antoni Wyrodek continued the decorative work in this place. We also continue our walk. And here you can see another example of the flow made of salt, but this time it's evaporated salt, so the color is different. And this evaporated salt was formed into cubes and also placed. There's a different type of flow, so it's also salt. And it's quite shiny, as you can see, not just because of we have excellent maintenance stuff here, but also because of thousands of tourists that go this way. So they basically polish the floor with the shoes. Just to give you some numbers, especially in the summer during high season, we have like between 5 and 9,000 visitors a day. Oh. And last year it was 1.5 million. So it's a very popular place in this part of Poland. We'll continue our walk, and in a moment we'll enter the chamber with the first underground artificial lake. Like that.
Uite lac, wow! Super! Doar ce adâncă e! Ce adâncă e!
Ladies and gentlemen, we entered the chamber dedicated to Erazm Baracz. Erazm Baracz was the administrator of the mine at the beginning of the 20th century. And this is the place with the first underground artificial lake in our salt mine. The lake is up to 9 meters deep and it contains the brine. So this fully saturated salt water doesn't affect the salt walls. On the sides of the lake, you look at examples of secondary crystallization. So once again, the famous salt cauliflowers. No sea life here because it's too salty, it's like a dead sea. So you can't swim, you can't dive, you'll just float on the surface because it's fully saturated. In this chamber, you can also see another sacring method used by the miners. In the central part, there is a salt pillar that was left here deliberately to secure the ceiling and the walls, while on the other side, we have the rock bolts pasted into the ceiling, so those two techniques were combined in this chamber. We'll continue our walk, so now we use the incline to reach the bottom part of the second level. So follow me, please, this way.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we reached the bottom part of the second level, and now we are 110 meters deep, and this level is dedicated to Adam Mickiewicz, famous Polish poet. We are also here very close to the Danimowicz shaft, the one you entered the mine, but this time on the second level. And this is the way, for example, for people who want to attend the Sunday service. So they don't need to go all the way as we did. They just take the lift to the second floor, use this corridor and go to St. Kinga's chapel. Also the couples who want to get married here use the same shortcut and go straight to the chapel. It's also possible for people with mobility problems to visit our mine. They have a special tour and they visit some of the chambers on the second level. Ladies and gentlemen, we entered the Michałowice chamber, and here you can admire an impressive wooden bundle structure created by miners to secure the ceiling and the walls. But this is just one part of the chamber. Here you can see also other securing methods used by the miners. So in the ceiling there is anchoring technique with the rock bolts. There are also 3 side salt pillars on that side to secure the wall, a wooden casing here, and a wall made of salt bricks. Sometimes this chamber is used for commercial purposes, so the terrace over there is for parties and weddings, the balcony on this side for the orchestra, and if you remember the beginning of our tour, the very first chamber we entered, I drew your attention to the staircase. So actually this is the staircase that leads to the first level, the first chamber we visited today, and when the mine was under Austrian administration in the 19th century, the first tourist route was created here, and it connected the first level with the second one. If you look above, also the biggest chandelier in our salt mine decorated with halide crystals. In this one, there are over 4,000 of them. We'll continue our walk, so please mind your steps and mind your heads, because the corridor is also quite low in this place. In a moment, we'll enter the Weimar chamber, the chamber that was named after the Prince of Weimar, who visited our mine together with famous German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe in 1790.
Cum se reflectă în apă. Super.
Ladies and gentlemen, we entered the chamber dedicated to Józef Piłsudski. Józef Piłsudski was the head of Polish state and also commander-in-chief of Polish armies. He's also regarded as a father of Polish independence. Józef Piłsudski visited our mine in 1919 and he also opened the mining academy in Krakow at that time. The second sculpture of the number 100 was placed here to commemorate 100th anniversary of regaining independence by the Polish state, and it was placed here in 2018. This chamber is actually a twin chamber connected with a tunnel. In the bottom part you will see the third underground artificial lake in our salt mine. And when the mine was under Austrian administration in the 19th century and the first tourist route was created here, one of the attractions in this place was an underground boat ride for VIP guests through the tunnel to the second part of the chamber. So you will see this place in a moment. We'll go down the stairs, so please mind your steps and follow me this way. Reach to the bottom part of the chamber, and here you can see the third underground artificial lake and the famous tunnel that leads to the second part of the chamber. You can also see the sculpture of Saint John Nepomuc here, and usually those sculptures presenting this saint are placed by the rivers or by the lakes, because Saint John Nepomuc is the patron saint that protects against drowning. Here you can also see another sacring method used by the miners. It's made of wood and it's called the basket casing because it resembles the basket turned upside down, so hence the name. And we reached almost the deepest point in our mine available for tourists, so now we are 130 meters deep. This is the Kazanów split level. We'll continue our walk, and please mind your heads because the corridor is also quite low in this place. So follow me, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we entered the chamber dedicated to Stanisław Staszic. Stanisław Staszic was a famous Polish scientist and geologist. There is a bust of Stanisław Staszic over there, carved in rock salt, and also geological exhibition in the showcases. This is also the highest chamber on the tourist route. It's 36 meters high, and in the past some spectacular events were organized here. Once there was the first underground hot air balloon flight and the first underground bungee jump, one of the terraces over there. It happened only once. It doesn't happen on a regular basis, and they were recognized by the Guinness Book of Records. As I mentioned at the beginning, our mine is also recognized by the UNESCO and was placed on the first World Heritage List by UNESCO along with the central part of Krakow. So there is a sign of UNESCO over there as well. This is actually the place where our tour is coming to an end. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the tour with me.
Dragilor, aici se încheie vlogul de astăzi de la Mina. Sper că v-a plăcut. Nu uitați să ne dați un like, să apăsați butonul de subscribe dacă nu ați făcut-o până acum, să vă abonați la canalul nostru. Noi am fost foarte încântați de această vizită și impresionați în același timp. Este absolut superb. Vă recomandăm să vizitați această mină dacă nu ați făcut-o până acum. Și până în data viitoare, nu uitați să vă colorați viața cu amintiri prețioase. V-am pupat, dragilor!